Good morning. We're talking about 1 Peter chapter 3, and I want to continue here about marriage. And we've been talking about some value shifts, and we come upon the third value shift in verse 5 and 6, just the first portion of verse 6. So here's verse 5. For this is how the holy women who hoped in God used to adorn themselves, by submitting to their own husbands. In other words, this is how they were made lovely, by submitting. That's really foreign to us, that service is how we would adorn ourselves. Submission is how we would adorn ourselves. The next statement, as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord. So the example that's given about submission is Sarah, and how Sarah came to Abraham and referred to him as Lord. Now, let's just be frank. If I were to say to you, ladies, I want you to imagine calling your husband Lord. For many of you, quite frankly, it'd probably be laughable for you to think about that. I'd like to press on that a little bit on two fronts. The first is I'd like to challenge us as men. What would it mean for us to be lordly? What does it mean for us to be lordly? The first piece is that if you're going to be lordly, you're going to have a regal character. You're going to be the kind of person that carries themselves with dignity and respect, that carries themselves as a gentleman, that carries themselves as someone who cares about others and thinks about others, who takes responsibility for others. You have a kind of regal character, namely the regal character of Christ. Secondly, you're going to act like someone who has the right to lead. I don't mean that you're a bull in the china closet. I don't mean that you verbally assert your leadership all the time. If you have to do that, the chances are good that you're trying to convince yourself that you're a leader and maybe convincing others, rather than, as I often will say, and I heard recently that a coach used to say to players, don't try to convince me, show me. Don't try to convince me, show me. So what you need to do is show that you're a leader by the fact that you lead with regal character. Now, if it's laughable, ladies, for you to think of calling your husband Lord in that way, and it may be, I would encourage you to reevaluate that. Not because you need to call him Lord, but because the idea that you would be in a posture where you'd say, I would happily serve this man, is actually part of marriage. It's something that the disposition that you ought to have is, here's the value shift. It ought to make you value roles over rights. To value roles over rights. Now, I realize when we talk about roles, it may be uncomfortable, but I don't think it should be, because God complementarily defined the roles and is simply inviting you to participate in the family in a way that will allow for your family to flourish and allow for you to flourish. And our propensity, honestly, is to assert our rights. So guys, if you're going to lead lordly, you're not going to be asserting your rights. You're going to be sacrificing. You're going to be a gentleman. You're going to be respectful. Ladies, if you're going to assert your rights, then you know how that's going to end. It's going to be conflict. It's going to be a jockeying for power, instead of embracing your roles and saying, let me be a gentleman, and in saying, let me submit and find there a great shelter in the embrace of my husband, and through that, the embrace of God, so that even if my husband isn't all that in a bag of chips, the Lord sure is, and the Lord will protect me. May the Lord bless you today.